Okay, this video is going to be a little different in structure than my usual content. See, most of the time whenever I make an analysis video, I do so under the assumption that the people who watch it are already familiar with the work I'm discussing. And while I'm sure that the majority of the people who watch this are already Witchblade fans, I also hope to encourage people to watch this amazing anime. So the first bit of this video is basically going to be a review where I expand upon Witchblade's many positive qualities in the hopes of convincing people to watch it. The rest of the video will be a proper analysis of this incredible work. So for all you pre-existing Witchblade fans who are eager to see this series get the narrative deep dive it deserves, skip to the time code on screen here. As for everyone else, hello, I'm Loki Productions, and right now I'm here to tell you why you need to watch Witchblade. Adapted from a comic I have absolutely no interest in reading, Witchblade takes place in an alternate history version of Japan, which was devastated by an earthquake 6 years before the start of the story, and follows Masane Amaha and her daughter Ryoko, as the two of them move to Tokyo in the hopes of starting a life together. This whole first episode does an excellent job of investing the audience in Masane and Riko's relationship, which is the emotional core of this narrative. Masane is just a delight to watch. She's kind of a disaster as a person. Short-tempered, stubborn, reckless, and ironically more childish than her own daughter in a lot of cases. But she loves her daughter more than anything in the world, and every decision she makes over the course of the story is for Riko's health and happiness. She's the kind of person who wouldn't hesitate to steal a fucking cop car to chase down her daughter after she's taken away by child services. And hey, wouldn't you know it, that actually happens in the first episode. She's got that dog in her for real for real. Ryoko is a great character in her own right, of course. She's adorable, clever, and her determination to make the people around her as happy as they can be is incredibly heartwarming. Together, they have a fantastic dynamic that 100% carries the show. And it doesn't just end with them. Every single significant character is a ton of fun to watch, and they all bounce off one another so well. The various residents of the apartment complex Masane and Riko eventually move into make for a great supporting cast, and their interactions are always a ton of fun to watch. As great as all of that is, however, Witchblade is still an action story at its core, and it's a damn good one at that. The various antagonists are all pretty compelling, and while the show may not have the most lavish production in the world, the fights are still tense and engaging as all hell. So yeah, Witchblade is fun as all hell on a surface level. It's got great writing, solid production values, fun fights, and it's able to be sexy and indulgent without being thoughtless. What especially impresses me about this work, however, is the story it chooses to tell. It's a fascinating and enthralling examination of greed, trauma, and morality, with the familial relationship between Masane and Riko to carry it through to its bittersweet yet undeniably satisfying ending. To me, Witchblade is like the perfect middle ground between high art and popcorn entertainment. If you're just looking for a fun, action-packed show to get invested in, you'll love Witchblade. And if you're the type who enjoys analyzing media in the hopes of understanding what its creator has to say and potentially gaining a new perspective on certain things, you'll love Witchblade. Seriously, go watch it. It's available in both English and Japanese on Hulu. And if you really don't want to deal with ads, someone uploaded almost the whole series on YouTube for free. It's not in HD, and I can only assume the last episode got copyright striked or something, but it's there for you. Okay, I hope I've made my case to those of you who haven't seen this incredible series yet, because now is where I advise you hop off. I don't know if I'd call Witchblade a story you need to go see unspoiled or something, but I do believe you'll have a more fulfilling experience if you go in relatively blind. With all that said, let's get on with the proper analysis. Witchblade opens to a scene of Masane and Riko arriving at Tokyo on a boat. I'm impressed by just how well this short scene characterizes our two leads. The way Masane goes out of her way to ensure a family of rubber ducks stays together, nearly falling out of the boat in the process, does an excellent job of illustrating her core characteristics. She's stubborn and a little childish, but undeniably caring and determined to make sure nobody is left alone. And the fact Riko is the one to ensure Masane doesn't dunk herself is an equally effective manner of showing both her character and what her relationship with her mother is like. something which is only reinforced by the following scenes of the two of them exploring Tokyo together. Over the course of these first few minutes, Witchblade provides its audience with a fun, breezy presentation of what we can expect from it, really. This is the story of a mother and daughter. Their relationship is what's going to keep us invested. So when child services show up and try to tear the two of them apart, we're in much the same position emotionally as Masane. Having spent a decent amount of time with these characters, we don't want to see them forcefully split up. We've seen just how much Masane loves her daughter, but we've also seen she's not exactly the most put together person. So it's understandable when she allows Riko to be taken away from her, only to immediately double back on that decision. And just damn. I remember first watching this and being taken aback by how unflinchingly real this moment is. From Riko's haunting cries for her mother to the "oh god, I've made a mistake" look on Masane's face, and the desperation in her attempts to correct it. As soon as I saw this moment, I knew I was hooked. But Witchblade isn't just an excellent drama about these two characters. It's also a kick-ass supernatural action anime. The titular artifact for which this series is named is a powerful visual representation of the corrupting nature of power, and the greed of those who seek it out for their own benefit. The Doji group, Reina, Father, and pretty much all the significant antagonists desire the power of the Witchblade for their own benefit, uncaring for both whomever wields it and the consequences of their actions. It doesn't matter to them so long as they acquire the Witchblade's incredible power. But we're shown just how destructive this line of thinking is through the characters and the world at large. The Doji group's obsession with possessing and refining the Witchblade is what led to the destruction of Tokyo 6 years prior to the start of the story, and it lets loose hundreds of dangerous eye weapons on the defenseless population. Father's ridiculous dream of being reborn to experience a perfect life dooms the Neo-Genes to a short, miserable life full of emotional abuse. And let's not forget how Wado's lust for the Witchblade's power almost destroys Tokyo again. Caught in the middle of all these greedy idiots is Masane, a compassionate mother who cares nothing for the power she's been gifted, save for how it might benefit Riko's life. But wait a second, Masane is pretty damn greedy herself, not just in the materialistic sense of how she constantly tries to get more and more money out of Reiji, but also as a person. Disregarding Father's twisted motivations for its creation for a moment, Child Services enters the story at various points and tells Masane flat out that she's not equipped to take care of Riko, and they're not entirely wrong either. Masane may love Riko with all her heart, but she's not exactly the best caregiver. I mean, let's not forget the one who got their apartment wasn't Masane, it's Riko. She's also consistently tasked with taking care of the house, cooking meals, and buying groceries. Now, it's not like Masane forces Riko to do these things, but there's no denying that more often than not, Riko's the one who has to take care of her mother, not the other way around. Despite this, Masane consistently refuses to let Riko be taken away from her, and not for entirely altruistic reasons. One of the first things Masane says in the series is,
"But I never liked being alone. Being apart from the group or left out, I don't know. Something about it just always felt wrong to me."
From this line, it becomes pretty clear that one of the reasons Masane loves her daughter so much is because being with Riko means she doesn't have to be alone. And Masane just can't exist by herself, something which is shown very explicitly after she allows Riko to be taken by Reina. She enters a depressive slump, barely bothering to take care of herself. She literally tells Reiji to cut her fucking arm off to take the Witchblade from her, because she sure as hell doesn't have any use for it on her own. This is gonna sound like an oxymoron, I know, but Masane is greedy when it comes to her relationships with the people in her life. She wants so desperately to live a happy life with her daughter, friends, and Reiji too later on, and anyone who stands in the way of that can go fuck themselves. Hell, at one point she's motivated to keep fighting by the promise of 10 million yen. So yeah, Masane is undeniably pretty damn greedy, but if Witchblade shows us how destructive greed is through its various antagonists, and our protagonist is similarly greedy, isn't that kind of a thematic contradiction? Yeah, not quite. And that's something I appreciate about Witchblade's exploration of greed. It doesn't just say greed is bad and pats itself on the back. No, Witchblade instead seeks to demonstrate how greed is kind of an unavoidable part of life, and how if that's the case, we should be greedy for the people we love, not ourselves. That's what we see through Masane. Her work with Takayama and the Doji group gifts her with millions of yen, but we never see her spend any of that on herself. You know what she does spend it on? An apartment for her and Riko. Clothes for Riko, medicine for Riko, family trips. The only thing on her mind is taking care of the most precious person in her life, and the nobility of that desire changes many people for the better. It makes Tozawa agree to hold off on writing his article protocol in the Doji group despite his desire to expose the truth, and it allows Reiji to recognize the destructive path his greed has put him on and correct it, coming out the end as a far better, more complete person, even lacking the power and influence the Doji group gave him. And of course, it reaches the hearts of the Neo-Genes and Ex-Cons in the series finale. But let's not jump too far ahead, because greed is only one of the narrative thrusts that make up Witchblade's thematic identity. The other is family. A couple times throughout this video, I've suggested that Masane maybe isn't the best parental figure for Riko, but then who is? Certainly not the branch of child services controlled by an old fuck with a mother complex. And since those are the only real options at the start of the series, it's obvious that Riko ought to stay in Masane's care. That's where Reina comes in. Reina is Riko's biological mother, and Masane's foil as relates to parental responsibilities. She exists to show us the socially accepted ideal of a perfect mother, at least on the surface. She's caring and attentive to Riko's every need, not to mention far more self-sufficient than Masane. The fact that she's there to attend to Riko's needs in the moments when Masane isn't able to doesn't hurt either. Considering she leaves behind father and seems incredibly invested in Riko's life certainly makes it seem like she is the ideal candidate to raise Riko, but when they actually start living together it becomes pretty obvious that's bullshit. And I'm not just talking about Reina's ulterior motives when I say that. Her tendency to treat their relationship as some grand experiment to better research her own existence is plenty fucked up, yes, but equally as flawed is the way she chooses to try and care for Riko. To me at least, it seems as though Reina's idea of motherhood is something that comes entirely from academic papers and other secondhand sources. She cooks for Riko, gives her tons of toys, and makes sure she grows up in a stable household, and it's like she figures that's everything that's required of her. Reina attempts to outdo Masane by treating Riko like a delicate flower that needs to be protected and nurtured at all times, and that's exactly where she fails. In the relationship between Riko and Masane, we see how family is supposed to care for each other. For all Masane's flaws as a person, and seemingly as a mother, there's one thing she always got right, and that's treating Riko as her own person. More than providing for Riko's base level needs, Masane always encouraged her daughter to develop and grow. She never tries to regulate Riko's interactions with others, whether those be the neighbors or even just a friendly stranger. Is it right for Riko to have to cook and shop for her mom? I don't fucking know, but what I do know is that she enjoys those things. We see how much she loves trying out new recipes and sharing her talent with others. That's what Reina doesn't understand. Every time Riko tries to better understand her or help her out, Reina completely stonewalls her. For all that she's better provided for, Riko isn't anywhere near as happy, and that's because Witchblade believes being a family means helping each other grow into the best people we can. We see this both in how Masane treats Riko, and also in how Riko changes both Masane and Reina for the better. It takes a minute, but Riko's efforts to better understand Reina do eventually get to the borderline sociopathic woman, and she comes to care for her daughter so much that she gives her life for Riko in the end. This chunk of the narrative also shows just how important Riko is to Masane. Separated from her daughter, Masane falls into a depressive slump. Her reason for fighting and working was all to provide for Riko, so when that's gone, she doesn't want to do anything, really. She literally tells Takayama to cut her fucking arm off in order to get rid of the Witchblade, and she only really comes to life again once Takayama reaffirms that Masane and Riko are family, in the truest sense of the word. But the self-destructive greed that permeates the series' antagonists won't allow such a peaceful family life to exist, and that's the tragedy we see take place over the last third of the series, as these two themes combat each other. First, Takayama loses his position within the Doji group, leaving Wado as Masane's boss. Wado is really the final form of Witchblade's exploration of greed, a man who can't stop wanting more, regardless of what it costs those around him. Of course, Takayama started out much the same way, but he was always willing to listen to the voices of others, so he was able to change into a better person because of Masane and Riko. Wado just isn't capable of that, and it makes everyone around him miserable. He even briefly drives a wedge between Masane and Riko by trying to control Masane's life, but Masane is able to overcome his influence by listening to Riko when she tells her to visit Takayama. They get together and grow into even stronger individuals themselves through their combined desire to provide for the people around them, namely Riko. However, in contrast to all this optimism is Wado's greed, which continually intrudes on these peaceful moments. Masane and Takayama's morning together is quite literally destroyed by an ex-con sent by Wado, and the same thing happens during Masane's family outing in episode 21. It's like Witchblade is constantly whispering into our ear that these moments can't last, and that only becomes more true as the Witchblade begins to take its toll on Masane. How do you tell someone you love that you're about to die? Such is the question that plagues Masane after the Witchblade begins to destroy her body. I love how honest Masane's reaction is to finding out she's gonna die soon. She wants to be accepting, to seem like she's at peace, but that's all bullshit. She desperately doesn't want to leave her daughter behind, hence why she tries everything she can think of to get rid of the Witchblade. And even after she comes to accept her incoming death, she struggles to figure out how to tell Riko. Watching her read self-help books and write out scripts to read to her is just so heartbreaking. And even after Masane manages to tell Riko about her incoming death, the world refuses to just stop for a moment. Right before Masane leaves to fight the ex-cons in this scene, she says,
"There's a part of me that can't resist the desire to fight. As long as I have this thing, it'll be the same wherever I go. I have to keep fighting."
And this stands out to me for how she's both right and wrong at the same time. The Witchblade does have a corrupting property that compels its users to fight, but Masane repeatedly fails to fall prey to it, as shown in the multiple instances when she attempts to give up the Witchblade or refuses to fight unless it benefits Riko in some way. However, she's not wrong when she says it'd be the same wherever she goes, and that's the real tragedy of this narrative. If the world weren't so damn greedy, Masane could have had a happy ending, but the self-destructive greed of the world's elite just won't let that happen. An even more depressing part of this is how, for all the scheming and manipulations of the various antagonists, they gain jack shit for their efforts. Father gets unceremoniously murked before he even comes close to achieving his goal. Same with Nishida. Wado breaks down, desperately clinging to happy memories from the past after everything he works for collapses around him. And Maria? Oh boy. I could probably make a whole other video just about her character arc, but to condense things as much as possible, Maria has quite the tragic journey across the series. All she's ever really wanted is for someone to love her, but every opportunity to experience such a relationship is denied to her. Maria attempts to repress these desires by obtaining a power so great she can have whatever she wants. But as many different characters point out, she doesn't actually know what she wants. Or well, to be more accurate, what she wants is seemingly out of her reach since Reina, her mother, is dead. And I think Masane recognizes this, recognizes all of it, in her final moments on Tokyo Tower. And because of this, Masane chooses to give Maria and all the ex-cons what they really desire, the warmth of familial love. Tokyo was almost destroyed twice over because of the self-destructive greed of those who pursued the power of the Witchblade. And in order to save Riko, Takayama, and everyone else she cares for from that ruinous future, Masane removed the Witchblade from this world, along with herself and all the other victims of the greed of Father and the Doji group. Witchblade is an undeniably bittersweet series with a bittersweet ending, one that asks us to do everything we're capable of for the people we love, even when combated by the machinations of greedy bastards. And I think that's a story worth experiencing, so go do that.